of Trustees Transportation Study Ad Hoc Committee meeting. This meeting is held in accordance with the Freedom of Information Act. The news media has been notified and a copy of the agenda has been made available to the public. This meeting is open to the public, but with limited first-come, first-served seating due to COVID-19. All persons wishing to attend the meeting by virtual means may do so via YouTube, Sumter School District, board meetings, and Sumter School District's Facebook page. We'll begin now our meeting by having a meditative thought followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We'll call our meeting to order, and if there are no objections, the agenda will stand as it is presented. I'd like to share with you the vision of our school district. Sumter School District is committed to educating, empowering, and enriching the lives of all students to reach their full potential. Our mission, Sumter School District is committed to providing a safe, nurturing, and high-quality educational environment that supports diversity and equips students for local and global success. Our committee members that serve on our Board of Trustees are J. Frank Baker, Chairman, Matthew McLeod, Brian Austin, and Cheryl Ray. Our subcommittee members are Miss Anita Hunter, Beverly Collier, Denise Jones, Jason Johnson, Teresa Sullivan, Valencia Gray Williams, and Alicia Case Rodriguez. We also tonight, in person, for subcommittee members, we have Miss Anita Hunter present, and by virtual, we have Miss Beverly Collier and Miss Denise Jones. And our board members present tonight are Brian Austin, Mike McLeod, and we have Miss Cheryl Ray joining us virtually. Our staff members present tonight are Dr. Martin Knox, our superintendent, and Amy Hampson, our administrative manager. Now, at this time, I would ask Mr. Cooper to begin the presentation for our committee meeting tonight.
Thank you, Dr. Baker, and thank you all for meeting here tonight, whether in person or virtually. This is our sixth meeting, and we have a little bit to cover tonight, but it shouldn't be too long that this meeting should hold you this evening. So our objectives tonight, we just want to review any updates since our last meeting on the 13th, and then also kind of go over a little overview of the current draft options that we are considering at the moment. We also want to discuss and answer any questions that any members may have about the project and the process moving forward. And then we also want to come to a consensus on the two options to bring to the upcoming public information session that's scheduled for next month, February 22nd. So just kind of giving a quick view of the timeline. We worked through a lot, started in July, and here we are in January of the new year. And this is our sixth meeting. It's the last one we have before the final public information session 3. This, like I said, is scheduled next month. And then after that public information session, we have one more meeting where we hope to review the results of public information session 3 and survey results, as well as we want to formulate the recommendation that we want to present to the Board of Education in March. So just a quick update on, since our last meeting on January 13th. At that meeting, we reviewed some results from public information session 2. And then we also brought forth 2 additional options, which were referred to as option 3 and 4. And upon reviewing those options, option 3 ranked the best among the 4 options, and how it better aligns to the realignment criteria. And then we also kind of spoke about option 4, which was developed in a sense to try to minimize as much impact with a potential realignment, as well as improve upon utilization and demographics, especially at the high school level. So when we presented option 4, we noticed while it performed well in some of the other variables, there were some in some areas that it didn't perform as well was in reference to the feeder patterns, where it had a fair amount of splits. Although relatively balanced, it had a fair amount of splits compared to the other 3 options. So following that meeting, I took some notes as we discussed, and we looked at ways of improving option 4, particularly in the feeder pattern segment, to see if we could clean up some splits from the elementary to middle school or middle school to high school. And after we looked at particular movements and their effect, we noticed that potentially improving upon the feeder patterns, especially at the elementary school to middle school level for option 4, while it resulted in improvements, it moved further away from other variables in the other realignment criteria, such as balancing utilization. So you'll see here on this slide, this is a snippet, a snapshot of option 4, and just shows you the area of Hollis Drive Middle School, Ebenezer, and Chestnut Oaks, because that was the area of focus where we looked at trying to improve and clean up some feeder pattern splits for option 4 to see if we can improve its score and its rank compared to the other options. So you'll see here that some of these planning blocks are highlighted, and these were the areas that we really considered moving. In particular, to clean up a small split from Willow Drive Elementary School, feeding into Ebenezer Middle School in option 4. So these areas here, we ran a series of tests to see the results of moving these areas into Hollis Drive Middle School, so that all of Willow Drive Elementary School would feed 100% into Hollis Drive Middle School in option 4. But one thing that we noticed is while that change if we had made this move, what we did notice that potentially moving this area to Hollis Drive Middle School adversely affected the middle school utilization balance. In particular, Hollis Drive is currently 65% estimated utilization in option 4. Moving this area into Hollis Drive puts their estimated utilization up to 72%. And our goal is to get the middle schools relatively balanced and as close to the district average of 52% as possible. Another adverse effect of potentially moving this area and improving upon the feeder patterns for option 4 was Ebenezer would end up moving further away from the district average, which is currently estimated at 52% in option 4. It would have moved to 42% if we had made this change to option 4. So we concluded that while option 4 does score very well in some areas, even though feeder patterns isn't its best factor, we concluded that it was best to leave option 4 as is and not make any adjustments, unless somebody from the committee feels like potential move from this area or any other areas involved as it pertains to option 4 is necessary. Does anybody have any questions as to why option 4 wasn't changed, or if they feel that a potential change like this one is necessary in order to consider it for realignment?
Ms. Hunter? Ms. Thompson?
I'll take that as nobody has any opposition to not changing option 4.
Okay.
So I just wanted to go over a quick overview of the options again, to give everybody a quick refresher. This here is a table of the scores and how they score comparatively to one another. You'll see that there's definitely some improvements compared to how the current zones scored and how the options score, and particularly in the transportation area and the utilization balance area. And in looking at these scores, you'll notice they all are scoring around the same area, although option 3 is taking the reins as the best ranking option, scoring option among the 4 options. But they all have good variables and good traits and show great improvements from where the current zones are scoring versus what these options are estimated to score. And then here's the rank table that kind of summarizes those scores and ranks it from first to least on how these options compare to one another. And showing here is kind of summarizes all those scores and gives you a good consensus on how these options are aligning to the realignment criteria. And as stated before, option 3 does rank the best among the 4 options, with option 2 closely behind, and option 4 and option 1B are tied and ranked for third. Does anybody have any questions over the scores of the rankings of the variables, or any questions that it pertains to how these options are aligning to the realignment criteria? Okay. So again, the same statistic handout from meeting 5 is available for you to review and for the public to review. You can gain access to that handout at sumterrealignment.com. There's tabs there that will highlight all the meetings and all the section materials, so that you're able to see how these options have evolved. If you ever want to go back and compare a newer option with the old one, that information is accessible to you. So now we just want to just kind of come to an understanding as a consultant and on Mr. Cropper and I, we discussed and we reviewed these options, and we have the public information session that's coming up next month. And we're only hoping to bring 1 or 2 options. We have 4 options on the table, so our best suggestion is to bring 2 options to the public at that time. And from our end of the table, we are looking at, because option 3 ranks the best among all the options, that's one of the options that we want to bring forth to the public information session and moving forward. And then we also decided that we wanted to bring option 4 to the public at the next public information session as well. And that is because option 4, while it increases and is one of the better balanced of utilization options among the 4 options, it's also the least impactful for district-wide realignment. It impacts the least amount of students. So we felt that it was a viable option for the public to be able to see, review, and give their input on. Does anybody have any objection or any suggestions as it pertains to bringing those 2 options forth to the next public information session? Or does anybody want to consider bringing option 1B or 2 to the public information session?
Mr. Austin?
Mr. Cooper, I would just say, I mean, if we set out on this journey to address the criteria that was set forth, I'm just struggling with taking forth an option that doesn't really address the criteria that was set forth. And I heard you earlier say that option 3 was the best, that most addressed the criteria, and then that 2B was in a close second. Maybe you can help me with the difference between 2B and 4.
Yeah, so because it is a district-wide realignment and it is impacting a lot of families, the reason why we chose to pretty much consider option 4 instead of 2B is because option 2B and option 3 are very closely related in the way that the boundaries are drawn up and some of the boundaries and zones that are set. So we wanted to give an opposing option that has a least impact, such as Crestwood High School, barely not being impacted as much, It reduces the impacts by nearly 1,000. But option 4 we thought was viable because we were able to still reduce those impacts while still giving and improving upon the utilization balance. And while transportation is a big factor in driving this realignment, option 4 still improved upon transportation at the middle school and high school level. The average transportation distance for a student traveling at the high school level in option 4 goes down to about 6.5 miles, and it's currently over 7.5. So there were still some improvements, and we understand that in some other variables it didn't rank as well, but we thought it was a good opposing option to bring in compared to option 3 to really give a different look on a potential realignment that could still solve a lot of issues as it pertains to the realignment criteria.
Mr. McLeod? Ms. Hunter? Did we get Ms. Ray on?
Yes.
Ms. Ray or Ms. Jones or Ms. Collier? Any comments?
Can you hear me?
Yeah,
I think that adding option 4 in there is a good idea because of the impact on students has been a major concern. So that does give us another option to consider that doesn't have the same number of students impacted. So I think that's a good choice.
okay.
This is Ms. Jones. I agree. In my mind, whichever option provides us the opportunity to meet as many of the criteria as we set forward when we first started this program, and that has an impact on the students. We need the less impact on students as we possibly can. So I think option 4 seems to meet the need for that.
Ms. Collier,
Yes, sir.
what's your feelings?
I feel that option 4 and 3 and 4 are good options to take.
Okay. We got anybody else? Ms. Hanson, or is that everybody? All right, I'm gonna come back to Mr. Austin, Mr. Cooper.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Cooper, what I will say about option 4 is that I don't know if it's been taken into account, but with option 2, the northwestern portion of the county has seen a lot of, especially at the high school level, with the building of the new high schools, seeing that area has been impacted a lot with the closure of, or the conversion of Hillcrest into a middle school, and then those students having to go to Crestwood. So I do like that portion of the option 4, especially at the high school level, that it has a less of an impact in that area as well. I do agree with the less of an impact on students. If we're talking about moving forward with this process, with the start of the next school year, then I think that I can agree with option 3 and 4 going forward as well.
Yes, and I appreciate your input, and it was definitely a tough consideration on our end. We fumbled back and forth, but reviewing the general feedback comments and then speaking with some of the community members at the last public information session, the great impact on families was just a big topic that stuck out to us, and that was why we wanted to draft a new option 4 that can accomplish and improve upon a lot of the realignment criteria, but really kind of hone in on decreasing the impacts as much as possible. And we were able to get that down to just under 1,000 kids, less than some of the other options. So I definitely appreciate the input from you all, and I definitely feel confident that the public will give us some good feedback and give us some good positive input on these 2 options. So just looking forward at the logistics coming up, at the next time we'll all meet is at the public information session that starts beginning on February 22nd. And it's going to be in the same fashion as the previous one, where we hope all committee members can please attend, especially when it comes to getting there and speaking with the public around the maps. They appreciate it and we do as well, and it gives us some good input as this process is nearing to an end. There will be a brief presentation as before that goes over the process, but I guess it will be more about the actual options, option 3 and 4, and less about the background of the process, since we've gone over that a few times at the previous 2 public information sessions. Again, we'll have plot maps there and displayed, and it'll happen at all 3 of the corresponding high schools. And I believe we'll be starting at Crestwood High School. Dr. Baker, is that the case on Tuesday?
Yes, we'll start with Crestwood, followed by Lakewood, and then Sumter High.
Sounds good. So in the same order and fashion, we're really looking forward to this as we get towards the end of this process. This is one of the final chances for us to get out there and put forth a viable option to the public and hear their feedback on it. You guys' work throughout this process has been much appreciated. With that being said, I have nothing else for you tonight. As I said before, this meeting wouldn't hold you up as long as the previous ones. So is that all, Dr. Baker? Does anybody have any other questions for?
Unless there are any other questions.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
And this is really more for Dr. Baker. There's been quite a bit of discussion about I know this is not necessarily the way the proper firm does it, but letting people have a chance to ask questions in the general meeting. Have we given any more consideration to that?
No, we have decided to continue with the same format that we used the first time around. It seemed like we got more input in that process, so I hope we'd even get some more input with that second go-round. Because a lot of the changes that have come about in these last 2 options came about as a result of that direct one-to-one, looking at those maps and having dialogue with Mr. Cooper and Mr. Cropper.
All right, I was just concerned, I got some feedback that they just didn't feel like they had the chance to say as much as they wanted to say, maybe, or not be heard, so I just don't want to be in that situation.
Okay.
I have a question. Would it be possible to maybe host one of these sessions, either virtually or in person, on the base, so that base families can have more input? If we could do it virtually, just so that it could be explained more to them, if we could make that a possibility. And I don't need an answer now, of course, but if we could consider that, so that the military families could have a little better option. A lot of them have to work so late they can't make it to the public sessions. That's what I was told.
So what you're saying, let me be clear, Ms. Jones, is if we could do it virtually for an area.
For the military, yes, sir. For the military families, if we could host it so that they could have some input and get a chance to hear the explanation, of the 4 options, and give them an opportunity to see what the changes are going to be.
Okay, and we can have that discussion with Mr. Cropper and Mr. Cooper and see if
Okay.
they're the wizards there with how they can make that work. So we will have that discussion with them.
Okay, that would be great if we could do that. And I do have one other question. I know that the length of the bus rides for our students is a really important issue, and I agree with that. And I'm just curious, Mr. Myers, I see you're on. Is the current bus driver situation, the current busing, are we still going to be able to meet these time frames? Or is that going to impact the length of time, transportation time, in addition to what they already have?
Well, we're taking a look at all of that just as we're going through the realignment process. We're evaluating that process as well, because there will be some changes along there, but it should not impact or extend that amount of time that students will be riding the buses.
Is this process going to help like the current issues now with buses having to run late and multiple drivers having to, run several different, routes. Is this process gonna help you guys at all?
Well, it will give some assistance to that. However, we're in the process of trying to find more drivers. That in itself would clear up a lot of that, because with short drivers, our drivers are having to run 2 and 3 different routes. And that's affecting it wholeheartedly. So we're working to get those additional persons on. And we've got a job fair that we're going to tomorrow, trying to find those extra drivers and some of the others. So until we can work that, it's going to be an impact. Going to continue to be an impact that we're working on.
Right. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Dr. Martin, did you want to add anything to Ms. Jones's question?
Yes, sir, and so it's a good question, Ms. Jones, and just to recall, that was the intent and the purpose of us doing this transportation study, is to look at the routes, look at the travel time for our children, and to find the optimal ways in which we can get our children to school first and foremost in a safe capacity, but to make sure that they're not on the buses for an extended period of time. So with the recommendations that have been brought forward, that's a process that has been examined. If you look at some of the presentations that were presented by Mr. Cropper and Mr. Cooper, looking at transportation travel time has been a factor as well. So there will be some adjustments to some of the bus routes, but it should clear up some of the double routes that our drivers have to take, but we are also still trying to recruit additional drivers to help assist us getting our children to school safely.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Ms. Jones. Okay, anybody have anything else?
No, but
Mr. McLeod?
I know I mentioned it last time, I just wanted to ask Mr. Cooper if they'd, considered, combining any of those low enrollment schools as part of this. Again, I mean, no, it wasn't a directive or anything, but just a question.
Yeah, no problem. And with these realignment options, we didn't recommend closing or combining any schools. We strictly looked at adjusting realignment boundaries for the current zones and the current schools in order to solve a lot of the issues that are going on as it comes to utilization, balance, and transportation.
Now, do you think that there is a benefit or not a benefit in even looking at that, or?
We firmly do believe that, from the aspect upon reviewing the district and the enrollment, that a school closing wasn't absolutely necessary. We try to look at, just adjusting zones first and foremost before we try to close or consider opening any new schools, when it comes to realignment. So upon our review, we felt that we were able to solve a lot of the issues that are going on within the district with strictly redistricting and realignment of the current zones.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Cooper. I guess that brings us down to looking forward to seeing y'all here in February, and, Ms. Rodriguez. Ms. Rodriguez, do you have any questions before we close? Ms. Hampson told me you had joined us.
Yes, no, sir, I don't have any questions. My apologies for being late. I just would like to echo what was said by Ms. Jones. Of course, you know, I work on the base and was a little late coming today, and that is something that would be a challenge. So thank you so much for that.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Okay, I guess that brings us down to, we won't bring any, don't have any recommendations to bring forward to our entire board. So that brings us down to closing remarks. And I just want to thank everyone for participating tonight, and thank our subcommittee members and our committee members for coming out tonight. And we look forward to public turnout at our public meeting starting February the 22nd. The first one will be at Crestwood High School at 6 o'clock in the Fine Arts Center, and the second one will be at Lakewood High School on February 23rd, 6 o'clock, Fine Arts Center, and the third one will be at Sumter High School February the 24th in the auditorium, starting at 6 o'clock. So hopefully we will have a good turnout of the public to look at these newest two options and give us some feedback. And again, thank you for your participation and joining us tonight.
Meeting's adjourned 6:30.
Ma'am,
Meeting's adjourned.
meeting adjourned. Hit this.
6:31, yeah.